Good morning, evening, and afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever time you're tuning in, the program called What's Going On allpointstv.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program, What's Going On? And we come on every Monday from 2 o'clock to 3, and every second and fourth Mondays. This is the first, this is the 11th. So this is the second Monday, but we had some very bad news, and want to report to the audience that Miss Catherine Hunter Williams lost her daughter. They turned the ventilator off today, John, and we're very sad to hear the news, and we will be giving our condolences to the family, and we're very saddened that a loved one has been lost, part of the family here at allpointstv.com.
She was very young, 245.
I'm not hearing you, John.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
The sound's going in and out.
Okay, she was 45 years old. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah.
We're not, okay, so, now I think, I got a short right here then. You're saying?
Yeah, she's 45 years old, I guess.
45 years old. And that, I was saying when I heard the news and how old she was, I was saying that's like middle age now. You know, persons are living to 80 and 90. And we keep going in and out. John, the sound is going in and out, so I'm not able
the headphone is, but you're still good.
Okay, I'm still good.
Yeah.
Okay, we like to always have 100% of our sound up to speed because we know that you expect us to have the same quality you have at CNN and all those networks out there. And so the short is not going to stop us from doing our program. I was saying I'm very sad to hear the news. Whenever somebody in the family, and we consider everybody here at the studio to be family members, when they lose a loved one, any time a close relative is lost, it's a loss we all feel. And we send our sincere condolences here from the studio to the family. And we know they're going to heal and mend and get well in the aftermath of this trauma. We know how traumatizing losing loved ones are. We've been there. All of us have been there. And this is just a sad moment for us. I'm sure it's traumatizing and devastating for the family. Okay, we're going to talk about a couple of things this afternoon. I wanted to make sure that we started where we left off last week. You remember I was telling you that we're getting ready to have a big vote here in the state of Michigan. And I was reading the polls, and I was aware that the voters were, according to the data, the voters were resoundingly against Proposal 1. I was definitely out there campaigning against it, which was, and I had read this proposal a couple of times, and each time I read it, I found out some more things in it because I didn't pick up all of what was in the bill at the initial reading that I engaged in. But when I read it again, I saw a slight hand trick they were using in there, and I wrote about it in my Facebook post. And that was that those jokers, and I'm talking about these politicians, they had put an inflationary factor in the bill. Did you pick that up, John, when you were dealing with Proposal 1?
I didn't read it all the way through. I just know that the basis of it was going to happen. They're going to get the money, and then they weren't going to use it for what it was intended for. It's going to be, I'll tell you what, unplug that from that little box and plug it into another one of those slots.
Should I put it in the other channel?
Yeah. Just unplug it and then plug it back into another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if that does any good there.
Does it help now?
Now, I can hear it now.
Yeah.
Let's do a commercial here on Verizon.
No, see, I didn't read it all the way through. I know that everything they say they're going to do with the money, we're going to do this with the money. It never turns out that way. Like, all the money from all the money was supposed to go to the lottery from the lottery to the schools. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
All this money back when they wanted to, Safe Hurley Hospital. We got it. Then you look at it, the small print on that, and it was like a lot of that money went went to the Uptown Development Group. What does it have to do with serving poor people for their medical needs? Nothing. They tacked it on there. So I mean, it's been part of that. So I mean, it shouldn't be part of that. So no,
I was very proud of the voters, who, I don't know if they figured out all the things we figured out here at the studio. We look at these things and with a fine-tooth comb, and we try to go through it and discern what the bill of particulars are, what the bill of particulars is, and what it actually has underneath the surface. Some things that you have to really study to see what the particulars are, not just for the bill you're passing right now, but what are the implications of the bill as it go forward. And what I had missed initially when I read this bill, and I'm talking, I read it quite a few, really a couple of months ago, when I first started to take note of what the bill was trying to prescribe for us to vote on, what was prescribed and wanted us to vote on. I had missed one part of it that was very important in terms of the sleight of hand part of the bill, and that was the part that has an inflationary component to it. And what that means is that when you put in there that the bill, when you put in there an inflationary component, what it means is that you vote for the bill one time, but the application of the bill has multiple tax, increase in tax implications. Because, and I think that was, in other words, they wouldn't have to come back to the voters and ask the voters to pass another increase. The increase would be automatic, because as inflation goes up, then the appropriation of the tax assessment would also go up. It'll go up automatically. So you're voting for this bill a single time, but the bill has multiple applications and implications in terms of what the tax would be over a period of time. In other words, the tax has no limits on it, because if you're going to continue to raise it because inflation is going to be raised, and that's going to happen because of the kind of financial, I don't call it planning, but this financial undermining that goes on in Washington. We're just printing all this money and have the currency expanding, and government's causing inflation by its excessive spending and won't stay within its means. Then you can expect then the inflation to continue, and then you're going to have the taxes go up as a result of that. And they didn't bring that out. I don't even think that was ever mentioned during the time they were trying to promote Proposal 1 to be passed. I just happened to run across it as I was going through it again to find out, you try to find, I read it, so let's see did I miss anything? And I had missed that part. I was very proud of the voters, because I think it's really a point of arrogance on the part of state legislatures and the governor of the state, and any state, as a matter of fact. They were coming and ask the voters, after they've taxed us out of, we can't pay out bills for all these taxes they're putting up on the American people. The Tea Party is called Tax Enough Already. And I'm reading two books right now, and it's amazing. One, both of them written by Charles Adams, and these two books are on taxes. One is called Those Dirty Rotten Taxes, and then another one of Adams' books is called The Impact of Taxes on World Civilization. And it's amazing how many of these wars in these countries, these rebellions in these countries, were over taxes. And since I went to church yesterday, I don't think anybody fainted when I walked in the door. When I went to church yesterday, I was thinking about taxes, because you're in church, and so as they were doing, the minister was doing the sermon, I was thinking about what Jesus said in terms of render to Caesar that which is Caesar, and to God that which is God's. And they're talking about taxes there. We're rendering to Caesar now. and we still pay taxes is still an issue, and it has always been an issue. What has happened is that the politicians have been very good in concealing their theft.
I brought that in the other day up on Facebook, posted about how these guys retire with millions and millions of dollars. You know, like say the average congressman senator makes $185,000 a year. After their run it might be like to several terms. So maybe if it's a senator, they have 3 or 4 terms. That's good money anyway coming in. Basically, everything they got, they get paid for, you know, and they walk away with it. Then when they walk away, they got 20 or 40, 50 million, $100 million. I mean, look at the Clintons, for God's sakes. I mean, they were both, Bill Clinton never practiced law. He and his wife were basically always on the dole being politicians. That's what you are. Let's face it. I mean, you might think it's trying to sound noble, but you are on the dole. You're basically saying, give me this job, and you're on the dole. If you do your job, then we have fewer complaints. But these guys are worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. I mean, they played $2.8 million up for their daughter Chelsea's wedding. Okay, now they're going to try to tell me that they can identify the working class because they're Democrats. I don't know anybody who's ever paid $2.8 million at a daughter's wedding. Okay, and he's got a foundation that's I don't know if you heard about the controversy of the Clinton Foundation. They're taking money all over the place from all over these foreign nationalists and national people, and I mean. And they're just totally disregarding that. I mean, this one guy, when I posted something about the politicians being, in it for the money, well, it's a hard job. You never please anybody. You know what? If you give me millions and millions of dollars, I could develop a real thick skin. You know that? Because basically, you got enough people, you got enough money, you got to pay everybody to make sure they keep you exempted from the wrath of the people. They're going to be kept more than an arm's length away from you. You're not even going to hear their complaints. So, I mean, all this, like, they're public servants, and they're doing this for your good. That's a load of crap, you know.
It is really it's not tested it cannot be tested by the facts. The premise is that they're public servants, but in terms of looking at politicians historically, both here and anywhere else abroad and throughout history, there is no evidence of it. It's just an assumption, a premise that they're running to do public service. And I'll get to that later on because I want to talk about these presidential candidates, some of whom I listened to before coming to the studio. And listen to politicians, I can tell you that when I listen to politicians, I have to do that with all kinds. By the time they get through talking, I have my head in my hands. I just can't believe some things come out of their mouths. And I don't believe anything they say until I have some empirical evidence that what they're saying is true. I take what they say with a grain of salt. And when I see them doing anything that seems to have a philanthropic purpose, I look at it with a jaundiced eye. I don't believe anything they talk about. I question everything they say. And that's what that's really what they've earned. They've earned our doubt. They haven't earned our respect. And we'll get to this. I do have that included in what I intend to talk about. But I did want to bring to you what I said I would talk about the first part of the program today, and that was the proposal 1. I thought it was going to be defeated, and I thought it would be defeated resoundingly, and that happened also. And the voters went there to the poll and did something that was really quite revolutionary, and that was to tell the government that we have rendered unto Caesar all that Caesar is going to get from us. If they get anything else from us in terms of rendering more to Caesar, then let Caesar produce the gun to do it. Let them take it. Let them come out of the woodwork and identify who they really are and bring their guns. I was insulted, quite frankly, that a government would try to tell us that we're paying driver's license every 4 years. We get our car registration every year. They are charging a house note for any tickets they distribute. That's a tax. If you have an animal that you place in your home, they want you to have a tax on the animal that you own, called a license. When you start adding up all these fees, they call it fees and license and all kinds of other things, so as to hide how much of our tax dollars are being taken from us. And then after they've done all of that, they come back and ask the people to tax themselves. I mean, I was highly insulted. And I was glad the voters figured out that they got enough of our tax money. I was on a radio program last Monday. And, you know, it's hard for me to sit on a program. I have to be honest with you and just tell you right up front. I have a problem sitting and talking to liberals. I try not to talk to them. That's just me. I'm not trying to sell that idea to anyone else. You can talk to them about it if you want to. I have chosen not to waste my time. And when I write my posts, and some of the people are reposted, I always go on that one site because I know this one guy is going to be over there hollering about nonsense. I want to go in there and jack him up because I don't tolerate them in my space. I don't want them coming on my posts and wasting my time. I did a post call. I said the post was called. I did this one. This post came up Sunday. I write a post every day. There's something left. If I just can't do it in less than. I try to do it. I try to respect the people who read my posts. A lot of people repost what I write. I try to respect their time. But when I start to write, before I know it, I'm 2 pages. I haven't gotten to what I want to say yet. Oh, that's preliminary, and I have to get to the meat of what I want to write in the post. I wrote this one called "Bye Bye Miss American Pie," and I put in parentheses there. It's not just a song. And this one person gets on the post once it's reposted by one of the person that almost reposts everything that I write, and he wants to talk about the song by the artist who put the song out. And I have made a parenthetical. I put it in parentheses. So parenthetically, I explained it wasn't about the song by saying it's not just a song. So when you think that if I'm not writing about the song, but using that American Pie analogy to say that it's not just bye bye Miss American Pie, but it's bye bye America, by what these politicians are doing. And I didn't mention McLean's. I think his name is McLean, was this artist that did the song. I didn't mention that person's name not one time. I was talking about James Madison.
Don McLean, yeah, Don McLean.
Don McLean?
Yeah, Don McLean, yeah.
And all of a sudden he's over talking about this is what liberals do. I don't want to talk to these people. It wastes my time talking nonsense and just go off on tangents. You talk about one thing, they talk about something else. They came in a whole point of view. And you want to see a liar, get them into any kind of discussion about anything. And that's particularly true of these liberal politicians. So I just have decided that, look, you can have all the talk you want to other folks. I have no problem with that. Those are your rights. But I have some rights also, and I do not want you in my space. I don't care what else, who the other persons are, whose space you get into, but I do not want them in my space. I don't talk to them. I don't engage them in conversation unless I'm getting paid for it. That's the way it's going to be, and that's hard nosed. But I'm just telling you that I consider persons that are on the left. You look in Baltimore. Look at Elijah Cummings. Look at this guy who said just the other day that the government has not done anything for Baltimore over the last, so many years. This joker has been in Congress for decades. And he's talking about the government's not done anything for Baltimore as if he's not part of the government. I mean, look here, I can't deal with these kind of people.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, yeah, I know they haven't done anything about it because I've been sitting on that money all that time. I got it in my account. I know. I got it. I'm not giving it to you guys. No.
They have no shame. I mean, I don't even know how these people sleep at night. I really don't. And by the way, if Democrats would tell you what they actually believed, see, they never talk about what their belief system is. Like Bernie Sanders. He's running on the Democratic Party, right? He's not going to win, and he knows he can't win. He wants to push Hillary Clinton's already over to the left. She's over to the left of Obama, if that's possible. Just hasn't had the power to carry out her agenda, but she's just as radical as this president we got in there right now. And he's a liar. Everything that comes out of that man's mouth. We got an article this morning talking about the lies he told about bin Laden. And there's Seymour. I think he writes for the. Don't give me misquote who he writes for, but he's a well-known columnist and author. And he wrote. And when he writes something, he's pretty much got it nailed down. And he was writing about how they lied about bin Laden. They had a couple of cover stories, so that if it went this way, they would tell this story. It went another way, it'd be another story, and they were going to talk about it was a drone strike, and had that as a cover story. I mean, these people are psychopaths.
It's like, and I'd like to know why they did this. Or, after they allegedly they killed bin Laden, they said they put his body into the Indian Ocean. Why the hell they do that? They knew that was going to get people. People want to see that body. They want to see actually have a DNA test on it and everything. No, they dump it in there. They knew they did that, so they can come back if you ask questions about it. And say, "Oh, you're so conspiratorial minded." See, look at you. You're just one of those nutcases. Wear those little metal helmets and keep, the aluminum foil. That's what they're going to say to you. And they did that deliberately so they could keep that as a potential thing to later on attack anybody who questioned their account.
Yeah, John, are you aware that 20 of the people that were on Navy SEAL Team 6 are dead that was in that operation? 20 of them.
Yeah, see, and I look at it. I mean, it's like when Clinton was a president, he had, when he was still the governor of Arkansas, he had all these dead people connected to his administration, all these dead people connected when he was president, and everybody's saying, it's just happenstance. I mean, 20 or 30 bodies stuck to this guy's, basically to his life. Dead bodies, and it's just coincidence. Mm-hmm. That one I could see, two maybe, but 20. That body, that amount, mm-hmm. So when you talk about that kind of stuff, I'm really questioning. It's almost like whoever's in charge wants these people who were brought into that, who were part of that team, totally gone. They just want them gone.
These people are sociopaths, and one of the things that we can just glean from behind the scenes of how they feel by what we see them doing publicly, and you have to go back behind it and see what that is about, is that they hate patriotism. You go look at the Tea Party being targeted by the IRS, for example, and look at them putting the health care under this rogue agency. Don't get me started on that, because I'll be talking about the total contempt they have for the American people. That's going to be seen by the fact that they've dismissed the document on which they're supposed to govern. I was listening to this joker before coming to the studio, Jeb Bush. And he's talking about he thinks he'll be able to convince the conservatives, of which he's not one, to go along with his immigration stance, where he wants to grant amnesty to everybody who broke into the country. And then he wants to give us these pity stories about, would you want to have a 10-year-old child that's on the honor roll deported if he's doing well in school, and what would you do about that? I would send them back to where they came from. That's what I would do with it, because we have laws here, and we're a sovereign nation. There are certain ways you do things.
Oh, I'd like to know this, Democrat or Republican. How can you tell the rest of us? We don't. You're here. You paid your taxes. You served in the military. You've been good. Even if you haven't done all that, you just paid your taxes and kept your nose clean, and we weren't part of the problem. Screw you. We're going to bring these people in because we think they're more deserving than you are. You're fat and lazy, and we can't get anything out of you. And it's got to be the Democrats and Republicans are conspiring together so they can provide a cheap labor source for the corporations, because now they're going to know that everybody's going to be turning against each other, us against them. And they know that. They know they can play on that. I mean, instead of trying to pay a decent wage, and I'm not a socialist, you know that. But I mean, it's like it's been proven. I mean, when you ever have a small population and people want you to be employed, they're going to be willing to pay the people in that community or that country better wages. That's what happened after the plague. People who wanted people to stay doing stuff had to pay the people better, because so many people were wiped out by the plague. There was a small population, and they had to retain the people who were working for them. So they had to pay them a little bit better wages. And that's what they're doing now. Both Democrats and Republicans want to bring everybody in. And the thing is, nobody addresses one issue. The reason why the American worker wants more, because they're taxed more. they're taxed more. They don't never address that. They're just making it look like somebody sounds like they're petty and want more, which they do. That's always everybody else is greedy, not you. You know that's
they are the people that are working for what they have are greedy because they want to keep that which they work for. But the government's not greedy, taking that which the government did not work for. But they have no greed over there.
Yeah, see, they don't have
greed is among the producers. The politicians are never greedy.
No, they're never greedy because let's face it, their greed's actually kept under wraps. I mean, we don't know what deal has been struck and how much money is exchanged hands before it gets to that point. You know, where we see it.
John, when I was in college, I was reading. You know, we read these books. I was a triple major, I guess, in undergrad school, but I was in political science, history, and economics. And I was reading these books, and the words robber baron kept coming up, and I'm trying to find out who did they rob. And this book doesn't tell me, but there's a name robber baron in there, and they're listing Vanderbilt and all these other persons. And then over here, another book is talking about it, and they're also writing the same thing. And I just can't figure out, you know, where the guns were used and who was the person that was victimized by it and how did they rob all these people and become the wealthy person that they were. And I found, and then when I began to do the research on it and going behind the class instructor that was up there, you know, he's doing what he's being paid to do, and that is to tell us about everybody but the politicians. They're wonderful. And I began to see that the politicians were never critiqued. We didn't have any critique in the college where I was. I went to I wouldn't say it's a Bible college. It was a Presbyterian college. I mean, you took 1 year of Bible. They didn't ram religion down your throat, but you knew you were inside of an institution that had strict policies as far as discipline is concerned. Women had to be in the dormitory at a certain time at a certain time of night, and they would be sent home if they were not in that dormitory. They knew if they went to the dorm, then the guys would go home. They didn't have a curfew for the guys; they had one for the girls. So all the females at that college had to be in their dorms. I think 10 o'clock was the time on the weekdays during school days, and weekend 11 o'clock. You had to be in there, and they would send you home if you were not in there. So the guys guys come home. If the girls were in, the guys would come back to the dorm anyway. And we had chapel and things like that, and so it was a conservative school. But they talked. It was a school, very good school. I had a good education there. I'm not knocking Knoxville College. I built Knoxville College up, but I took a good high school resume into the college though, and they didn't have. I think we had 1,000 students there, and so they had a very selective population. Those persons there were pretty good students, but we were very conservative school. And they never talked a lot about these politicians. I'm thinking that the business people were the ones that were the robber barons. I'm trying to figure out who did they rob, who did they steal, and I couldn't find it out. Well, you know, they might have done some things untoward, but I'm telling you who the robber barons are. The robber barons are the politicians. Because I'll tell you this, if you take somebody's money, you ought to then have a good reason. If you're using guns to do it and you're using the legal cover of the state to do it, you ought to have a very good reason why you're doing it.
Yeah, and it's ironic, the people who hate capitalism because they say this abuse happens want to go and put into place more apparatus headed up by the same people who gave you this abuse in capitalism they're now calling the robber barons. I mean, they always want help. They want more suit. I mean, that's the left's got this innate weirdness about it, to me, in my opinion. They have they want heroes. They would basically think they see their people as like, you know, having the big S on their shirt and, you know, the cape, and they're stopping crime and they're stopping corruption. And I mean, it's just bizarre. They have this the bizarre thing for hero worship.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the left on the far left in the communist. I mean, look at they got a guy who was display for what a better part of how many years after he had died. You know, people could come by and venerate him. They took like this like a religious zeal that they wanted to stamp out, you know, and the belief in a deity, but they wanted to put it into humans. They wanted that to be directed, and that's what the left. I think that what characterizes the left. The left wants you to venerate humans.
Yeah, look at the Che Guevara shirt. Why are people walking around with a picture of Mao Zedong on their shirt? I mean, Glenn Beck was talking about Che Guevara shirts being sold at Disneyland. They selling this to our children. Like they ought to be worshiping these.
And he was anti-gay. He wanted to kill homosexuals. He was a racist. He called blacks terrible names.
Yeah,
and much worse than worse than Mel Gibson calling Jews a few years ago. I mean, it's like, and the thing is, the left will step all over themselves to try to accommodate all these. Like, how can you have, you know, fundamentalist Islamic people in the country where now you're trying to push for gay marriage as well as also, you know, basically abortion, you know, reproductive rights. They're not gonna be on board for that. How can you get these people mixed up? You're not. They're mutually exclusive categories here. You know.
I'll tell you something. If you have patience with if you have the patience of Job, then you can probably have a conversation with these people on the left. I'll tell you something. I don't have that patience, and you look at, for example, these are all people on the left. Look in Baltimore. Now this singer, Prince, put a song out. He's getting ready to do a concert in Baltimore. Has a song out. Has a song. I listened to it this weekend, and the song is about Baltimore. It's typical Prince nonsense. Now he wants to go down there and do a concert, projecting the song out there, because there's no fiduciary interest in anything. He's not doing anything commercial here. It's all, you know, Prince, you know, doing public service. I mean, that's the kind of person he is. He wants to make sure that people are sensitive and things like that. Well, you know, Baltimore has the 5th largest homicide rate and the 5th most violent city in the United States. Behind some notable cities like the one we in here and Flint, don't forget Chicago and Los Angeles, but there ain't no songs about any of that. And then you got this one guy who's got a rap sheet long as my arm, and he gets killed. First of all, that guy's injured during the arrest. And when the facts come out, all the stuff that Marilyn Mosby did, and she's over there on the left with her crazy self, well, she should be impeached just based upon what she did, letting the mob drive the agenda in an attorney, in the district attorney. They call him state attorney in Baltimore, but it's a district attorney in other states. In that role that woman has with that much power, for her to use that power the way she did to get the mob out of the street, and told the mob, you heard the political intent behind the indictment of these police officers, that I've heard you, your voice has been heard, no justice, no peace. What is this being said by, how do you say that? In other words, she picked up the rhetoric of the mob and arrested these 6 officers. 3 of them are black, so that's not gonna, you can't run the racial narrative on that one because half the police that have been charged are black police officers. So are they targeting blacks also? Now, Freddie Gray's rap sheet has been totally dismissed, and that's what the left does. You can't have, I've thrown my hands up. I can't talk to these people. And I refuse to engage them in conversation. Now, if they get in my space, and my first intent is to get them out of my space. I do not want to have a conversation with these people, except to tell them to get some help. Because I look at this liberalism as a psychosomatic disorder. And then that goes from the top, starting with this president, down through the new attorney general, and before her, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder. The only person out there in the law enforcement that makes any sense and makes sense every time he opens his mouth up is this Milwaukee County Sheriff named David Clark. You listen to this man and compare what he's saying to what this meandering nonsense coming out of Loretta Lynch's mouth. She just nothing other than Eric Holder wearing a skirt or a pantsuit. There's not one bit of difference in the ideological concept of Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder. And she's up here getting ready right now talking about she wants to come in and probe the Baltimore Police Department. Did you think there was a police problem in Baltimore because of what 6 officers did and might not have done? Out of 3,000 police officers, we got a police problem in Baltimore. You got a crime problem in Baltimore. Did you see those hoodlums, those thugs, tearing up those businesses? And
So I wasn't on cue. I gotta go. You said that word.
yeah, these are thugs.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And then look what the left is doing with that, John. The left is so thuggish themselves. You're a bunch of thugs yourself. Talking about everything's gonna be racial with these people.
It's like, I know, yeah, 3 of these cops are being accused of, the 6 are black themselves. Yeah, it's a racial issue. I mean, well, I guess it's like the whites in that force are so dominant that the blacks have to acquiesce and take their lead, right? Follow their lead, and being oppressive to people who look like them. I don't understand this. I mean, how can they accuse that of being? How can they make this a racist issue in Baltimore?
The left has created a racial narrative. The racial narrative takes the place of racism. In other words, the left doesn't have anything to go with as far as the racism is concerned. You know why? And I can document this because I just got through reading the second book by Dwayne Perriman, and they get in touch with that person. Dwayne Perriman has his 4 or 5 books out. But the book you might want to look at is the one called Blacks, Whites, and Racist Democrats. And let's see if I can call this page up. I know I can. I'm gonna call it up. Look on page 152 of that book, and you're gonna find something out there that's gonna open your eyes up to race in this country and who holds the baggage of race in this country. And that is one party and one group only. And that's the Democratic Party. The party that black folks run over there now, 90% of, now they complain about racism, and in the party where the racists were and are today. In Baltimore, Elijah Cummings and those guys going to talk about what the government not done, they're Democrats. And that's the party that's actually doing the black folks a different way today than did in the past. That's the party that's caused these problems. The left has caused these problems. And the left doing all the attacking, all the pointing of fingers. I will tell you this, look, I will not talk to these people. It's not going to happen. I have nothing to say to people that dishonest. And when I found out that Obama was that dishonest, I voted against him. I wish they would call me like they did this actress, that they jumped all over her case because she voiced an objection to him running in 2012. She voted for Romney, and they went all off on her because she did that. I didn't vote for Obama in 2012. I saw what the man was doing. In fact, I started looking at this guy in 2009. And when I saw him deal with Professor Gates, the way he dealt with that case there, and didn't have the evidence, I looked a little, askance at what was going on here. Didn't have all the triggers at that point, but then he went over there June 4th, 2009 to Cairo and spoke at the Al-Azhar University. And I read that speech and transcript of that speech, and I did another about face. I then saw what who this person was. He had concealed himself. And that's another thing that the left does. The left has to conceal itself. Because if the American people knew what these people actually thought. I mean, look, I was saying earlier, Bernie Sanders is running. Now, this man, he's an independent. Now, he caucused with the Democrats. He called himself an independent. You know why? Because he's more extreme than they are. But because they are also extreme, he caucuses with the Democratic Party and then calls himself something we've never seen in history, a democratic socialist. Can I ask a question here? What is that? You can't be a socialist and be a Democrat. Was Mao? What about Stalin? These people are, socialists, or you call them what they really are. I mean, socialist is just a politically correct term, because the other term that they really are is more alarming. And when you start putting these little titles in front of it as a modifier of the noun, I mean, why doesn't Bernie Sanders just come out and tell us he's a socialist? Well, you see, that's too alarming. And if they say communism, you've had the McCarthy period, you had the person in the past, we purged the Communist Party. Of course, we didn't purge the Communist Party. What we did was to turn it into a party that began to talk around what it was, but look at the ideals they're promoting and propagating in the Democratic Party right now. There's not one iota of difference between what that party does and what that party is doing, has done and is doing now, than what they would be doing if they call themselves what they are, and that's a Communist Party. There's a Communist Party over there.
I'm encouraged by Sanders running, though, because if Hillary does get the nomination, he's going to pull votes away from her. And I hope they keep that going, because he can't go to the Democrat camp, because he's been an independent for how many years now. I can't stand Sanders. He is a communist. There is no difference. I mean, people understand, well, we're going to do a redistribute wealth. Guess what? All this stuff, you're not putting the label on it, but it's been tried and failed. Another thing is, too, what's so democratic about Cuba? They were supposed to be the communist country, supposed to be basically you have a elite, basically. Raul's taken over after Fidel was incapacitated. So basically, handed the reins of power to a country over. Isn't that what the communists always said was horrible when the royal families did it, the monarchies and stuff? I mean, but they become just like that. See, it's Marx talks about the cult of personality. The cult of personality is more apparent and more readily available within the communist system itself than it is any other system of governance.
Yeah, if they're not communists, then why don't they step down from power? I'm talking about these people that served 20, 30, and 40 years. For what? What do these people know? That's what I wanted to bring. I wanted to tell you something about the Constitution here, about how irrelevant politicians were intended to be in the country in terms of the role they play. When I get to Article 1, Section 4, I'm going to read something to you here about how irrelevant the framers thought of politicians. And you can tell the intent of the framers by what they wrote. You can actually see. You can actually envision their outlook, their mindset, by just reading the document they put together here, because this is a convergence of all the ideas of the people at Philadelphia. They had met in Annapolis in 1786, but they didn't have a quorum, and didn't really have a mandate, and didn't really have an idea what they need to do. But thinking about it over a period of time, when they get back together again in 1787, the following year, particularly in the aftermath of the Shays Rebellion, they got there and they decided they had to do something. The Articles was certainly not the umbrella protection they needed, because we saw what happened in Massachusetts. And look how that got out of control. And the weakened federal government could not respond to it because they hadn't given any power to it. And then all of them were exposed. So they came together with a new charge, energy, when they went to Philadelphia. But when you see all these minds coming together and constructing this document right here, the Constitution of the United States, I don't know if anybody in Congress has heard of it. It might be a foreign document as far as they're concerned. They put this together. And when you read the document, and you do it as you would do anything else, this is a spiritual document right here. And when you read it carefully, and you have to read it real carefully, because you're reading it to discern the mindset. And I'm gonna read something in Article 1, Section 4. I'm gonna show you what's in that something very important in there. Well, let me get to that. Let me deal with that by going through the first 4 sections of the first article. Article 1, Section 1, as you know, sets up the legislative branch of government. It says all the power to make laws shall be invested in the Congress of the United States. It's Article 1, Section 1. Article 1, Section 2 sets up the House of Representatives, and then sets that part of it up. The people's body was intended. And then Article 1, Section 3 sets up the Senate. Now we get to Article 1, Section 4. I want to read this to you right here. I'm going to show you how the framers thought of how irrelevant politicians are. And they really said in the preamble is not part of the Constitution, but it's a prelude. You know, pre means before the document, right? So this is what we believe. This is our intent. They showed us the intent in that which they put in the constitutional, the document that governs this country. So they put down there, we the people. Now they didn't say we the politicians. So let's go to Article 1, Section 4. Let me read this to you. Article 1, Section 4. Show how irrelevant they consider these politicians. Now we're setting up times, places, and manner of holding elections for the senators and representatives. Shall be prescribed in each state by the legislatures thereof, but the Congress may at any time by law, and listen very carefully, may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, time, place, and so on of elected representatives can set time and place, except at the place of choosing senators. Here is an example of the founding fathers telling the politicians as they're creating the federal government. In Article 1, the Congress of the United States, which is composed of two chambers, the House in Article 1, Section 2, the Senate in Article 1, Section 3, and then telling those members who will be in Washington, D.C., weren't in Washington, D.C. at first, they were in New York, and then because of deal making that was going on, and they went to a lot of different things there, Philadelphia, and then on to Potomac. You go and read this book by Ron Chernow. He does a good job in dealing with Alexander Hamilton. And really, Hamilton was really running the Washington administration, but that's part of Washington's greatness, because Hamilton was much more of a government person than Washington was, and we'll get to that too about these politicians. So I want to talk about these guys running right now. But here's the part I want you to be aware of. And this is right here. This is also in Article 1, Section 4. Now, after telling them, keep your hands off of anything to do with the senators. Because why would they do that? Because they're telling these persons in the federal government that these persons who are the senators are our representatives. And the federal government, we're giving you the authority to do this, and we're giving you the authority to do that, but we are the states. We are the people. We the people of the United States. And where do the people reside? They reside in the states. That's where they reside. They didn't say we the politicians. They said we the people. The people are in the states. And they say this to them in the states, that they can choose and the time, places, and so on and so forth. As far as the House is concerned, don't forget the House is the people's body. They come back to you every 2 years, so if they're not doing what they should be doing, then the people will check upon that body right there. But the senators, though, were considered to be the representatives in Washington of the states. And they're telling the federal government, this is the states talking to the federal government, that part is sacred to the states. And the federal governments keep their hands off of it. Then it says this, still in Article 1, Section 4. Listen to this very carefully. All you 20, 30, and 40 year 20, 30, 40-year politicians. All of them are dictators. Once you get in power and you will not leave power, you're a dictator. Now, you may say, well, they're elected. They still didn't leave, did they? If you get in power and you don't leave, you're a dictator. Now, there are electoral dictators. Now, they can conceal their dictatorial impulse, but listen to this very carefully in terms of what was intended. I mean, George Washington didn't have to be run out of office. The man stepped down after 2 terms. That was what was considered. You go and do the service and you go back home. And you're up there 30 and 40, doing what? What are they up there doing 30 and 40 years? Here's a part right here that shows you what the framers had in mind in setting this document up in Article 1, Section 4. The second paragraph says this: the Congress shall assemble, that is, shall meet, at least once in every year. They have that meeting every day. The framers said that they should meet to carry out the people's business. They should be there at least once a year. But they didn't intend for them, they didn't say they should meet at least 6 months of the year, or they should meet 3 months. None of that is in there. They should meet at least once a year. Why? So as to be able to verify that we still got a Congress. If you don't meet, you don't exist. Should meet once, at least once a year. All right. That brings us then to these jokers running for president. And I know you're going to be hearing a lot of talk about, and I heard that this morning, we need somebody that has foreign policy experience. Why? We need somebody that has these credentials and so on and so forth. What would that be for? It's just like I was arguing, people giving Pamela Geller's meeting in Texas, and they were talking about, Muslims were talking about, well, when we come out there against this violence, these are sidebar kind of thing. Nobody wants to publish what how we go out. We come out against this violence. Get out of here. Whether you're against the violence or not is irrelevant. What is relevant is this: you don't come here to America to be Americans. That's what's relevant. And you come out here with this, we're against violence. You ain't stopping none of it. These are sidebar kinds of things. And so we got this conversation going on with these presidential candidates. And they got us thinking that we need somebody that these are distractions.
Yeah, I heard that about Obama. They said they're going to be better qualified because he lived abroad and he understood and he actually knew how other people perceived us. Well, that's the case, and I don't see any discernible foreign policy in this administration.
No,
so
they don't know anything.
No, I mean, and basically, and the thing is, to be honest, can you have one person coming in with a mindset that what they're going to how to handle foreign policy? Because let's face it, if those are foreign nations, you're going to be dealing with them on individual basis. Their merits or demerits for that, or your connection to them historically or whatever the country's historical connections to yours. So I mean, to have one set standard you're going to have apply to all nations is ridiculous. The only thing I can say is cut back on our foreign aid. Because our country is borrowing money to give to people. I mean, it's like you going, hey, you want to give a gift to your family members. You go borrowing money so you can continue giving them gifts. And then they're saying you call them an ally. Where are they an ally? I mean, they're taking your money. They're not being your buddies. They're not doing your bidding. They're not doing anything for you. That's not alliance. That's basically trying to buy your friends. And it doesn't work.
John, we act like these. I mean, I wish people need to follow these policies. Maybe when they get up out of bed, we can just simply follow them around until they get dressed to go out and they're sitting out in the halls of power. You see, these people get up in the morning. You know what they do? They get up and brush their teeth, take a shower, go in there and grab a cup of coffee, probably get a little, maybe some toast. I don't know whatever they have for breakfast. They do the same things you do. These people are not exceptional. Most of them are mediocre, probably more mediocre than most people out there.
John F. Kennedy was a C student at Harvard, okay? Or, what was it, Harvard or Yale? Was it Harvard he went to?
Harvard?
Yeah, he was a C student, okay? Which back then they actually had standards. So, I mean, he was a pretty And mid-level student, okay? I mean, average student.
He'd be an A student today.
Huh?
He'd be an A student today.
Yeah, because the standards is so much. I mean, the Harvard of the 1940s and the Harvard of today, there's no comparison.
No comparison at all. And they dare not put a quiz bowl up. You used to have a quiz bowl on Sundays where the Ivy schools would be going up against each other, and you'd have these hard questions over there, and both schools answering the questions one after the other. They wouldn't dare do that right now. If any kind of contest goes on now in these colleges, would be football contests and basketball. They're not going to do anything in terms of academics. It'd be embarrassing.
You know what quiz bowls to me I always felt is more like it's basically a trivia pursuit, basically for academic level. And it's good for. I mean, I'm great at Trivial Pursuit. I kick butt, but I don't think I'm qualified to make statements about foreign policy until I have to let Ty bone up on it, look at it, and see how that fits with ours. So, I mean, people can regurgitate facts, doesn't make them better leaders anyway. And that's who you get for these people in our leadership is people can regurgitate facts, get good grades, which means they're agreement with the professors usually. You know, that's all. I mean, I was around academic setting for the better part of my adult life.
Right.
So, I mean, I saw a lot of people were A students, but you couldn't get them to think. You couldn't have them say, why do you think this way? Is that what you really think, or is it simply you spitting out? They couldn't do it.
No, you got to regurgitate what the professor said in those notes. You write down what he says, this gospel, and you give it back to him on his test. That's how you get through colleges. But this idea that they know anything, these politicians, I mean, we think these people are smart. There's nothing, I want to take you back to the very beginning of this country's history. Now, these geniuses wrote one of the most remarkable documents that's ever been written in history as a governing decree. Better than the 1628 Petition of Rights, better than the 1215 Magna Carta. You know, all these particulars have been written before them. They didn't copy any of that. They went and created something that the world had never seen. I mean, creating a president. The world had never seen a president before. The world was always ruled by kings. You go and read Toussaint Louverture's Overture's book. That's why he could not deal with that which had happened in the United States. We'd had a president. What Toussaint Louverture Overture did, and made a mistake when Napoleon was saying the world has always bowed down to kings. Yeah, and the king threw him in a dungeon too. And Toussaint Louverture Overture, the Haitian leader that rose up in 1791 against France, we got through celebrating. I don't know why they're celebrating Cinco de Mayo, because the Mexicans beat France. Who didn't beat France? And so the slaves beat France. Slaves beat France. But look, the idea that these politicians know anything, let me go back, let me go and just go through a couple of things here, because we're going to run out of time. Okay, we had the great George Washington. George Washington was our greatest president. And anybody says that you're going to put Abraham Lincoln up there, get out of here. That nonsense. And then you got Franklin Delano Roosevelt, number 2. Can we talk? This is ridiculous. George Washington was the greatest president. That's it. Don't come here with the rest of that liberal nonsense. And okay, so George Washington, you had John Adams, you had Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, and we're back to Adams again. John Quincy Adams. Now, folks, that should tell you something. And what that tells you is this. We didn't even have, with all the scholars that they had at that time, and the founders were scholars, you still didn't have a whole lot of folks to choose from to run the country. That's why they're repeating themselves. And when that class dies out, we really get in trouble at that point. Because why would you have Madison, number 4. Madison is the father of the Constitution. But you see what's going on is that they're going back to get those persons and put them in office because, why? Ain't nobody else out there. There's not a lot of folks that are out there. And other ones right now know anything. Who's out there right now? Hillary Clinton, you know what, the question, look, forget foreign policy, forget all of these things they're talking about. Let's talk about one thing and one thing only. Can we get somebody in office who's not a psychopath, not a liar, who's not dishonest, who will tell the American, look in the camera, not like Hillary Clinton did when she was up there trying to explain after coming out of the UN building and took her time getting out there because she knew he was going to ask her some questions. That woman couldn't even look in the camera. You see how this woman looking over here? I thought this was Lionel Richie, people on the ceiling, not dancing, but listening to Hillary. And she couldn't even look in the camera because she knew she was lying. Everybody knew she was lying. And this woman is a serious contender to be president. I don't hear nothing this woman got to say. And the American people need to wake up and smell the coffee, the tea, and anything else you're brewing. Even some of that other stuff you're not supposed to be brewing. Because this idea they're going to solve our problems, politicians have never solved a problem in the history of the universe. And if they have, what problem have they solved? Let's start in this country. What problem have politicians solved in this country? They got Roosevelt number 2. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. What problem did Roosevelt solve? He gave us these problems.
Well, he did have a cure for the economic crisis because he got us into World War II. And he got half America dying and half America producing the stuff to kill half the population of Europe and, Japan. So that's how he got, that's how he got the economic recovery rolling here in the United States.
And
World War II.
And overstayed his welcome, used the crisis in World War II to break the precedent, how many terms you're serving, and he wouldn't leave. This man died in office, having been elected to 4 terms. We never had a president elected to more than 2 terms until 1940. Now he's running for a 3rd term and was successful. Then ran for a 4th term. Now we got to have a law. Didn't even have to have a law until he got in there. They're going to make him number 2, the 2nd greatest president we've had. Look, we need a president that's going to be honest. And I don't see anyone out there right now that you could say would be an honest president if they are elected. You certainly can't say that about Hillary Clinton and this Jeb Bush, who is despicable, talking about he's going to get the conservatives. He can bring the conservatives along to endorse people that violate this country's sovereignty, and we're going to now give them a pathway to citizenship after breaking in here. This man want to sell that to the American people. Look, these are politicians, and if they're not going to adhere to this right here, we can't use them. The hour's too critical. Okay, we got to get out of here. We'll see you next week because we want you to be here every week, and don't forget all the programs here at allpointstv.com. We're working very hard to earn your trust, and we know you're going to stay tuned to what we do here at the studio. Until next time, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.